Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Thank God it's Friday, as they say. We thank you for linking up with us on the Friday edition of Morning Spring, coming to you from Western Spring Television, where we say it as it is. Thank you for starting your morning with us and the beginning of the weekend. Friday is synonymous with partying and rest in Nigeria, and we do hope that you have a restful weekend. Emmanuel,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we hope you have a restful weekend. Emmanuel Ujadigele is my name. And of course, it's Friday. It's time to get freaky. It's time to get into the groove and into the mood. It's time to enjoy your weekend. It's Morning Spring once again, and we're glad to have you here. Do not forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook and Instagram at Western Spring Television, and on Twitter at WSTV_NG. Thank God it's Friday. It's time to eat and sleep and rest.
Okay, so just before then, we get serious until the later part of the day. So we do serious talks. And then for many people, whether it's Friday or it's going to be freaky, it's doubtful because you're still on the queues. I see my queues this morning. And for enemies who wished that I was also going to queue yesterday, I was going to walk. I'm glad to announce to you that my tank is filled again.
Glory to God.
Glory to God.
Well, every fuel
enemies
tank
have been put to shame.
Well, every fuel tank gets empty at some point, so we'll wait for that point.
I have some respite for the next few weeks. If you like, I will do well to. I can manage Nigerian economy without I'm managing my field now.
Very good.
I can. So trust me with that. But it was in all that a pleasant experience. I bought one at 270. Then moving down, I saw just a very short queue, very small queue, sort of. And then I decided to just fill the rest up. And here we are today. But I feel sorry that every morning coming to work, I see long queues of people who've been there for some as early as 4 a.m. I understand. You know, it's horrible. And going back home at night also, late in the evening, you see some of them there. Even when the filling station is closed, they do not want to leave so that they don't lose their space the following morning. And for how long will this be? But we'll talk about it later on because there's an interesting development. An agency of government is giving orders to another agency of government.
Yes.
I don't know how it works. In Nigeria, sometimes can be a contradiction that you wonder how does
things work?
You know, so, but the DSS has given them how many hours now?
48 hours.
48 hours. So we do hope that it works. I hope it works. But it's bizarre that DSS are coming
to
intervene. But it is what it is, as we say.
Well, it is what it is. We will be bringing you the newspaper review, the interview segment, and of course, our spring trends on Morning Spring this morning. When we return from this break, we'll take the papers and let you know what's happening.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's begin with the Punch newspapers here. It's about the cash withdrawal. That's the banner headline on the Punch newspaper. Emefiele insists on limits. Reps demand suspension with a number of riders. CBN governor says withdrawal limits will be increased or reduced. Customers return 1 trillion naira old notes to banks. Bills kept in CBN vault. No banks in our constituencies. Cashless policy can't work. Reps. That's interesting. So there are some parts of this country where there are no banks. That's the fact. That's the truth. Some local governments at all where you do not have banks. So it's the jury is still out as to how that's going to work out in some of those places.
Yes, of course. And there are some areas where there are banks, but because of some security issues, in Osun, for instance, Osun Central Senatorial District, out of about 10 local governments, just Olorunda and Osogbo have functional banks.
That's the capital city.
Yes, capital. And there's one in, I think, Okuku or something, but Onyo. Yeah, Onyo. But it doesn't really work. They have very little time to work. So that means the people in that area will really, really have it hard when it comes to.
So they need to come to Osogbo to do transactions.
And they spend as much as 3,000 sometimes. I spoke with some of them some months ago, and up till now, it's still not been resolved. So they have to come all the way to town and then go back later. And then the POS people who operate POS also have to come to take large amount of cash,
deposits and
you know, and then exposing
withdrawals.
themselves to, you know, armed robbery attacks, you know, sometimes accidents and all of that. So with this policy, it means that there will be increased traffic from the rural areas into the urban centers. And considering the state of the roads, the price of transportation now, it's just going to be a problem.
And so, mind you also that now the POS, you know, withdrawals also as a limit now.
Yes.
20,000 naira thereabout. So for areas where, you know, areas you just mentioned where there are no banks, so how are they going to manage in such an instance? So for those who rely on the POS to withdraw like 50,000, 100,000 naira, now they've been pegged to 20,000 naira. How would they manage? But I think there'll be some adjustment there and there.
Yes.
You know,
and then customers returning 1 trillion naira old note. I saw some videos.
Okay.
You know, over 2 weeks now after this announcement by the CBN. Some very old note. I mean, 200 naira notes from 2008, 500 naira notes from 2008 were being returned or being deposited in the banks. And then the question is, this notes are still fresh. Where have they been? Obviously, they've not just been pulled out from the bank, you know. So it means some persons have stocked up on cash. And someone made a joke that the people who will benefit from these are people who have ceremonies this time, because people want to, you know, push out the cash. So they just spray money anyhow at event. But on a more serious note, it's quite worrisome that people stack so much cash at home. Apart from the security risk, it's just not good for circulation of cash.
All right. So, well, just beside the, you know, just above that, you have reps querying NPC, CBN, others over on edited accounts, and above the nameplate, you have INEC plans voting centers for 2 million IDPs. Election rigging, resist pressure. Opposition wants military. DHQ cautions soldiers. I mean, there's been concerns about how IDPs will vote, but INEC is saying there's a plan for them. LCCI knocks FG over worsening credit ratings. And this is actually Lagos Chamber of Commerce, you know, and Industries. You know, so just below the banner headline, you see pictures of the nasty traffic gridlock on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It's horrible. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm not really a fan of Lagos is because of the traffic. I dread to spend 1 hour in sweltering heat, you know, on the same spot. It's so unpleasant, so uncomfortable. So I can't imagine what people along this route are actually facing at the moment.
And there's the risk of traffic robbers, as they're now known, people who just come smash your windscreen. You can't even wind up except you have an armored vehicle. You know, they smash your windscreen.
And are you going to roll up your windows
in the heat?
No. Now when you buy fuel for 300 naira, so you need to hold one. Whether you buy more fuel or it's just. I
saw a video yesterday. I don't know if the person was exaggerating, but it was around 7 p.m. and he said he had been in traffic since 2:30 p.m.
Was that on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway?
The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And I know that I've experienced it before, hours, maybe not up to 5 hours, but maybe 3-4 hours. And it's just, then you get to the end of the hold up, and there's nothing really serious, no accident, nothing, and you begin to wonder.
But I think it's because of
the diversion.
Yes, partly because of the road construction. But I felt it was going to improve because the contractors said they were going to stop work and resume in January. Yes. I reckon because of the Yuletide, but it appears that things have noticed. I passed through that route last Friday. I was lucky. I spent some few minutes on the Long Bridge, but it wasn't this bad. I dread to go back now, you know, with what I'm seeing here. I'm worried. So I'd rather actually go and take the train.
Yes, or you could join Ishan Airways. You know,
oh, okay. The famous Edo Benin Airlines.
Yes, teach you how to.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm from Osho. I do not possess such powers.
Welcome you to the club. All right, from the Punch newspaper, we'll move over to the Guardian this morning. The Guardian newspaper, Friday, December 9th. The banner headline there says, "We won't compromise 2023 despite pressure," says Irabo. PDP shun all entreaties, temptations to thwart peaceful polls. Stakeholders want synergy among INEC, NCC, NICOM-SAT for each free election. 2023 polls significant to Africa's stability, West African leaders say. When these statements are made about pressure. I feel that the military should name those who are pressurizing them. If you cast your mind back, there was a time President Muhammadu Buhari said that the people of a particular state, I think Benue, were lucky that he did not ask, they didn't use security architecture to scuttle the election. You know, that gives a color kind of to this kind of allegations, this kind of messages, despite pressure that's coming from the chief of army staff now, chief of defense staff. So who is pressurizing the military to get involved in the election and compromise it?
Well, I mean, so like you said, it would be good to name names,
Yes.
shame those who are involved in that. But it's also good that the Nigerian military is restating its commitment to democracy and to peaceful elections, because they're not the one conducting the elections, but a critical component of, you know, the electoral framework in terms of providing security. In other parts of the world, you actually do not even deploy security on election day, but Nigerians, we are who we are. So some of these things do not work the way it works, you know, elsewhere. But I'm also very particular about the last rider to that story. 2023 poll significant to Africa's stability, West African leaders say. Yeah. Many people do not understand the gravity of our importance or the enormity of Nigeria's importance in African affairs. You know, for those who dream or wish wars, God forbid, I mean, which country in the West African sub-region will be able to accommodate an influx of refugees of, you know, excess of 100 million? You know, I mean, so how do you, the best is for the world to ensure that Nigeria is well kept and, you know, closely knitted. Any crisis that pushes Nigeria to the brink will be felt by the rest of Africa.
I mean, apart from Senegal and maybe Ghana, every other West African country seems to have some sort of issue, jihadist, you know, internal crisis and all of that, coups and all. So it's just going to be very, very dangerous.
And, you know, the enormity of the humanitarian crisis will be overwhelming for many of those West African states. So we really need to get it right. And our position in Africa, you know, we understand it, that we need to maintain that, you know, if Senegal is getting, though there's some tensions there, you saw the wrestling bout at the Senegalese parliament the other time.
Yes.
Oh, I think you had it on
I had it on Spring. And it was actually because they were debating something on justice, but because someone said something to a religious leader, that became a ground for that row.
And he left his seat to go and slap
a woman. And at the end of the day, the woman was carried out by EMTs. The point of
the woman also threw a chair.
Yeah, she threw a chair, but she didn't hit her target. It was very poor. You know,
that's unfortunate. But I mean, you do not hit a woman
at all. In fact, you don't even hit anyone.
Anyone. It's unparliamentary.
Yes, you're a lawmaker. It was beamed live. It was a live event. You know, so we need to get it right. And someone made a joke that our lawmakers have transitioned from throwing chairs to sleeping. Maybe other African countries should also copy. Instead of fighting, just sleep it off.
And there was a time that we were tearing our clothes out,
climbing fences, really you know.
Oh my goodness. We've evolved.
We've evolved to sleeping now.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, and still on the Guardian newspaper, below the banner headline there, despite Rep's intervention, Emefiele says no going back on cashless policy, withdrawal limits. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper.
Who blinks first? We'll see.
Yes. Below that story, military, international NGOs and challenges of winning peace against insurgency. You can read the Guardian's big story on pages 4 and 5. Now just below the nameplate, Oshibajo meets Vietnam's president, harps on why Nigeria is best place to invest in Africa. That's on page 3. And don't buy meter transformer wires, NERC tells electricity consumers. Well, we'll come back to that. It's funny. I wouldn't believe article. Maybank insists as hoodlums attack house, destroy cars, others. And DSS gives NNPC, Ipman, Nupeng, others 48 hours to end fuel scarcity. As on page 2. Back to that story about not buying meters, transformers, wires. We can talk about meters because they're issued by the government, but transformers?
You actually, I mean, so the reality is actually that even meters are bought by,
yes.
You know, you do all of these things. Your transfer. Which government or which electricity distribution company will you wait till eternity?
Yes.
You wait for them to come and fix what? To come and buy you transformers?
People contribute their hard-earned money to buy transformers, to buy wires. It's when you are even disconnected from the grid, maybe you're defaulting on your payment, you have to buy wires to reconnect. So you're already buying wires. Now you're talking about transformers. People who have not had power since for 10 years, and then
Yeah.
someone says, okay, I'll bring 2 million naira. The transformer is 5 million naira. You guys raise 3 million naira. People, they have no choice.
No. I mean, so I feel that the NERC is also living in fantasy
Yes.
land, because there is nowhere in most part of Nigeria where this is happening. Most electricity consumers buy their own meters, buy their own transformers. We get, some of our, programs on radio, Ojueleri.
Yes.
You get people who come and say, we've contributed this much, we're appealing to, they do not appeal to the electricity distribution companies. But the unfortunate thing is, the moment you buy, the IBDC or whatever names they are called, and the other ones in that part of the country say, it's their property. So they take it over. They said, statutorily, the moment you buy and it's been energized, it becomes their property.
So what were they waiting for? What were they looking at while people were living in darkness?
So perhaps we should also ask the question that realistically, can they actually supply all? Because if you also look at the number of requests of the number of communities asking to be serviced, asking to be given transformers, maybe we need to establish a different agency or commission for that. But I know that it's quite a lot, and because of the expansion of some of the areas, communities that had one transformer before, when there are 10,000 households, now there are 50,000. So you need to give them another transformer. All of those issues. But now people contribute, and there was one community that was actually unfortunate. They contributed, bought a transformer, discovered that they bought the wrong one, or they bought a faulty one. So they are now appealing to government. It's funny, but it's very sad.
Very sad, yes.
Appealing to government and politicians, and the time they get to get politicians to supply, give them transformers, is when it's in the build up to the election. But otherwise, they do not get anything. In a number of talking points in that Guardian, the incident in Rivers also is shameful.
Very shameful.
Lima Iba, his house in Port Harcourt, I saw pictures yesterday. I was disgusted. Politics should not be taken this far. You are free to support whoever you want to support. You should not
impose
or impress it on me that this is who I should support. I mean, that's silly. It should be condemned by right thinking Nigerians. And the man is even insisting he's not going to leave Atiku. We've seen, you mentioned Celestine Ameha's incident yesterday in one of our conversations about the fact that because supporting Atiku, the governor, these are these are classic traits of dictatorship. And most of our governors live like emperors. And they demand accountability from the federal government. They are tyrannical at the subnational level, and it's so shameful. This is ridiculous. This is embarrassing. This should be condemned. All right thinking Nigerians.
Yes, it should be, because I shouldn't lose my life because we are on different political paths. You have your choice. I'm not fighting you for having your own choice. Why fight me? It was quite really disappointing to see that Governor Wike is actually stepping out of line. If we are to be sincere, being vindictive, being that bitter to the point of stripping someone of, even if it was impeached, you can still. But going through the House of Assembly to make it a law, that nobody should refer to him as a former governor, it's just taking it too far. And now we're seeing people being attacked.
You need to say the man's cars.
This is really unfortunate.
The windscreens were smashed. There are reports that his other brother was injured, badly injured. They were beaten. It's shameful. And before now, we've seen pictures of thugs, associates of the governor, moving around Port Harcourt, removing pictures of Atiku, their posters. We've seen businesses of some of these people who also attacked, some of them with all manner of things. It's shameful. So if this is happening to a member within your party,
what happens to the
opposition? Imagine. And so power is ephemeral. By May 29 next year,
he will be out.
Governor Nyesom Wike will be a former governor. And we've seen people will succeed you, and we feel that they will kowtow to you, become something else.
Yes,
Anyone say comes to mind, Chimaroke Namani, Sullivan Chime, many of these.
Even here in Osun State, there was the rancor between a predecessor and successor.
You understand? Look at Kwankwansu and Ganduje. There are many
examples
very
different
around. So you'll be a former governor, and then you'll be treated the same way
you've treated
others. Yes. And so the last one is about the DSS. We talked about that earlier in an introduction. Well, as absurd as it is, perhaps I feel Nigerians will take anything to make this go away.
Yes. My own question now is: you're giving them 48 hours to end fuel scarcity, or what? What happened?
Okay.
What would you do? Who will you be arresting? Who will you be locking up? Will you be
Can
using
we
your
try
own
with the
tanks?
NNPC GMD first?
Well, I think it's he wouldn't want to take the fall, so maybe the smaller people.
Oh,
You know,
okay. Because
the arrest would go, round. The NMPDRA would also have to they will have to arrest some persons
have
there.
they said they were going to arrest? They just give out.
No, I'm saying that,
you are assuming.
yes, assuming to end fuel scarcity or what? What will you do? Please speak, everybody.
So I think that's coming because NNPC said they have enough stock
Yes.
to go around. So
34 days.
the DSS must have been confused as to, so then what the
Why
hell
is
is
it not
happening?
down? Yes.
Well, like you said, we like to see if it doesn't happen. So for the 8 hours, by Monday here, we should be reviewing these and
Yes.
saying, so what
What has
happens to
happened? What has
DSS?
happened?
We do hope that the ultimatum works anyway.
Yes, I'd love to see arrest, by the way. So I love juicy stories for my spring friends, All right, that's it on the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Let's go to the Daily Trust now. DSS, that's still a lead story for the Daily Trust newspaper. So DSS gives NNPC marketers 48 hours to end fuel scarcity, vows to deal with economic saboteurs. So you're getting the drift now.
Yeah.
NNPC has 1.9 billion liters in stock. Marketers to get product at X depot price. Wow. Okay. So if 1.9 billion liters is in stock, then what the hell is happening?
Why are we not seeing it in town? Why are people not getting petrol? We need answers to this question. What is happening? Do we have issues with it? Nupeng is not on strike. Ipman is not on strike. So what is happening?
Is it about logistics or is it about the? I mean, I don't know. There's been no
explanation.
No explanation whatsoever. Well, so just down below that banner headline, questions over enforcement as VIPs escape. That escape is in quotes. Contempt convictions. Questions over enforcement as VIPs escape contempt convictions. We've had quite a number of high-profile contempt convictions. The IGP, the FCC chairman.
Yes. And I think the Chief of Army Staff.
The Chief of Army Staff.
Yes.
Has any of them been committed to prison yet?
No, the question is who would arrest them. I think that was the question you asked.
So, that's the question. That's the question also asking. Yes. Because if this were to be ordinary folks, immediately they'll be lumped into prison. Yes. It talks about our rule of law and about our institutions in the country. So no matter who you are, the South African president is facing some issues because of what he did. I doubt if that would have happened here in Nigeria.
And his predecessor was jailed.
Yes.
For contempt.
Would that have happened in Nigeria?
No, I don't think so.
It wouldn't have happened. Okay, so down below that, Boko Haram demands bicycles condiments. Orders from farmers. Guys want to cook.
I want to enjoy the festive period. Funny as it is, I mean, it takes away the eating the fruit of your labor part of our existence for these poor farmers. You probably farmed for a very long time, and when it's time to take your profit, your reward, someone comes from somewhere and says, give me all you have, or lose your life, or lose your children. And then people are really forced to make that the hard decision to part with their labor. And then it's sad that there are no security. There are security agencies, but I don't think enough is being done. More needs to be done. We give kudos to the Nigerian military and every other security agency involved in fighting insecurity, but a lot of things still need to be worked on. Terrorists, insurgents should not be making demands. They should be cowering in fear, running away from the bombardment and all of that of the Nigerian forces. But putting the poor people under this sort of strong-handed ruling is a problem for me personally. It's a problem.
It is.
It's a very big problem.
It is. Okay, so another story on the front page of the Daily Trust is Sirika under fire over boast about funds to prosecute election. That's Sirika is the Minister of Aviation, and we're under pressure to compromise elections. That's from the Chief of Defense. Now we talked about that earlier on. Who is putting them under pressure? Can we name names? And we shame the people pressuring the.
Of course, they need to name names. It's very important. We need to know who is fighting against Nigeria's interests. Nigerians need to know the people who are trying to sabotage the system. For the CDS to be making that statement, he must have been getting calls. He must have been getting.
And so when the name names
emails.
also, it's also important that they provide evidence so that it's not
Yes.
like, you know, casting
Just-
aspersion at
yes.
someone and just lying. So, and I believe that if you name names, others would be wary, you know, others would not want to go that route because we're not going to take. But it's also good that the army, the defense forces, Nigerian forces are saying that we won't cave in under that pressure. Okay, so just below the nameplates by the top right-hand corner of the paper, CBN insists on the cash withdrawal limit as Rep. Solomon Emefiele. 11 foreign firms bid for Ajaokuta Steel Company. AFCFTA, Nigeria targets $12 billion trade, 10% of Africa's global imports. That's that with the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, over to the Nation newspaper this morning. There's a lot of stories on the front page. We'll begin with the banner headline. Emefiele, review of cash withdrawal policy likely. 1 trillion naira mopped up. Reps invite CBN governor, wants plan suspended. There's been a lot of stories about that on different dailies this morning. And right above that story, you see the strip there. INEC order to list Ogun National State Assembly LP candidates. That's on page 31. And above that story, petrol crisis must end tomorrow, says DSS. NNPCL 1.9 billion liters available. And just beside that story, CDS Irabo, military won't be pressurized to compromise 2023 polls. And above the nameplate, Siemens transformers arrive to boost electricity supply. And then gunmen steals 4 babies in raid of hospital. No place is safe in court. 2023, 5,676,585 PVCs collected in Lagos, says INEC. That's still on page 31. And Rivers government alleges plot to blackmail Wike over G5. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And at the bottom strip, NEDC kicks off building of 12.5 billion naira abandoned 54-kilometer road. And right down there, Osun APC not opposed to reconciliation with Aragbeshola's men. Let's look at that story of gunmen stealing 4 babies in raid of hospital. Again, the issues of insecurity.
Yeah, and I mean, so nowhere is safe. It's just disappointing that even hospital, and what would the gunmen do with babies? For what purpose? If for ransom?
Well, there are a lot of things, a lot of possible criminal tendencies. There could be organ harvesting. There could be trafficking. There could be ritual killings, because we live in a very superstitious and diabolical socio-cultural context. You know, so this may be a part of the reasons, but whatever reasons they have, it should not be happening in the hospital of all places. People go there to deliver their babies, and then after 9 months, after going through the pain of delivery, your baby is snatched from you by gunmen, and those babies may never be recovered, you know, and they may be recovered but mutilated, they may be recovered but dead. You know, so many possibilities, so many scary possibilities. Actually, the possibilities are scary, and it's really worrisome that nowhere is safe. You know, hospitals, schools, churches, mosques. Well, where do we
Everywhere,
run to?
you know, everywhere. We do hope that we'll get over this. The Nigeria heals, and Nigeria regains sanity and peace. But that's too much about the papers this morning. Let's take a short break. When we return, we'll be bringing you our guest. How would you like a TV station that breaks the barriers of your TV screen? A TV station that brings infotainment to your forefront, breaking the conceptual fourth wall. Giving you television that is personal to you and your everyday life. Indigenous broadcasting for every man, cutting across the shackles of age, class, and language. With the best of equipment in digitized broadcasting. At Western Spring Television, your television experience has never been this magical.
will bring you the best in news and programs, breaking news to you as it drops from where it drops. Talk shows that keep you glued to your seats, sports programs not void of in-depth analysis, entertainment programs cutting across all ages, political analysis with all its accompanying controversies, social responsibility because we care. Western Nigeria gave us our first feel of television. Western Spring Television is taking us to the next level.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Can you imagine the feeling when you get your news as the break with facts and clarity? Our news are reported as it is.
In Africa, and all those who masterminded the way it happened will have to pay a price.
Enjoy Western programs, projecting culture and tradition to the world. Brought to you as the break and recapped every hour for your update.
We must never forget the sacrifices of the heroes of Nigeria's democracy.
Produced and brought to you in a unique way never before seen.
Western Spring.
Western Spring.
And Western Spring Television. Television is coming home in your color and culture.
Turn it up! It's the Wild Wild West. And Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be shown on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Evelyn Ohiole, King Eve. How are you today?
I'm good, I'm fine, I'm alive.
I really feel like she's not giving the right answer to the question. When one asks you, how are you? And you said, you're saying, I'm alive. It's very annoying, seriously. How are you? I'm fine. I feel I'm fine will be the right answer instead of I'm alive. Not that I asked you if you're dead before.
Go and check all these 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, everybody, they are extraordinarily sexually active.
I feel is being unnecessarily hyper when it comes to the issue of sex, because we talk about other topics and it feels so reserved. It really doesn't have anything much to say when it comes to other stuff. But when it's the issue of sex, I believe he's being unnecessarily hyper. That's when I have to pick an issue with him. I mean, it's just being unnecessarily there when we're talking about sex. Just like a child, his mom just got him his favorite chocolate or ice cream, very happy, doing as though if he doesn't have sex for a day, he's going to die.
When it comes to finance, women also support their husbands financially. You need me emotionally. You need me spiritually.
Cassie is an amazing person, but I hate the too much attachment to that gender. I need you spiritually, I need you mentally. I can get these things anywhere with money. If you go by the topic was, who does marriage favors the most? You know how many jobless women they marry every Saturday? They are saying it favors you, Are they vague so?
Growing up, when I was in the world, we've heard of
Who are you now?
Well, MC Too Much said he likes saying when I was in the world, and the last time I checked, well, it looks a bit innocent, facially, but deep down, is actually out of this world. We're all in the world now. As long as you're alive, you're in the world. So MC Too Much, I beg when you talk about that. I don't want to hear that. Next time you talk about I kiss my voice.
I think I have a problem with you saying ladies are champion, and that's the problem. Always trying to attach too much importance to that gender.
It's giving insecurity, it's giving low self-esteem, it's giving a blatant display of egoism. Because at the end of the day, a man who is secured in his words, a man who is confident of who he is, will not really be disturbed as to whether women are being referred to as champions or not. I mean, at the end of the day, Joseph's a really great guy, but whether he likes it or not, women are champions. Turn it up! It's the Wild Wild West. And Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be shown on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trades and investments of Western powers. Western Spring Television identifies Berlin Conference as a major event in history.
Thank you so much for staying with us. You're still on to Morning Spring, coming to you from Western Spring Television. Remember, you can watch us live on YouTube. Western Spring Television is the channel, and do well to subscribe to us on that platform. You can also check us out on all of our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us on Star Times channel 190, the DTTA platform. Well, while we wait for our guests to join us, our focus this morning will be on that cash withdrawal limit that we've been talking about for the past few days here. You know, lots of reactions are trailing it, and some people support, some people are actually against. Many are wondering and worried about the likely impact of that on the economy, on small-scale businesses, on SMEs. And there was another side that we didn't factor in yesterday during our conversation about unbanked areas of the country.
Well, there are so many reactions, like you said, to that particular incident. A lot of persons airing their opinions and talking about what will be the outcome, how it will affect people. And there are a lot of reactions, especially on social media, where people have been saying, for instance, that the new regulation, a lot of businesses, people, especially market women and men, will resort to keeping their money in their house instead of taking it to the bank. And this may just increase the rate at which this set of people get robbed on a daily basis. So it's good on one side. On the other side, there are also cons. It has pros and cons, you know, especially when you look at the fact that only 200 naira and below will be loaded into ATMs. So if I have to withdraw 20,000 naira, for instance, like I said, it's going to be 100 notes compared to if I were to withdraw 1,000 naira and just 20 notes. So that I have more cash to carry around, and that makes me more susceptible to being robbed or to being attacked by whoever it is that will be doing that. You know, so a lot of comments around this, a lot of people making. Let me go through the policy again. Further to the launch of the new redesigned note, and all of that. Number one, maximum cash withdrawal over the counter by individuals and corporate organizations per week shall henceforth be 100,000 naira and 500,000 naira respectively. Now, we see that as an individual, I can withdraw over the counter more than 100,000 naira.
Yeah.
So what if I have emergency? What if I have, for instance, someone who gets into an accident and needs to pay huge sum for surgery,
so I think
or some other things?
That if you need to do that, perhaps you need to write to the bank's manager or something like that to get clearance.
And yes, in compelling circumstances, that's number 6, not exceeding once a month, where cash withdrawals above the prescribed limit is required for legitimate purposes. Such cash withdrawals shall not exceed 5 million naira and 10 million naira for individuals and corporate organizations, and they shall be subjected to reference licensing fees. That's 5% and 10%, and in addition to enhanced due diligence and further information required. Now, those requires include valid means of identification, bank verification number, notarized customer declaration of the purpose for the cash withdrawal, senior management approval for withdrawal by managing director of the drawee where applicable, approval in writing by the MDC of the bank authorizing the withdrawal. Now, these are we know what bureaucracy is, how it is in Nigeria. We know how bottlenecks are. Before you can get a senior management to approve, before you can get an approval of the MD or CEO in writing authorizing the withdrawal, then there's a problem. Then there are other footnotes too. Monthly returns on the cash withdrawal transactions above the specified limits shall be rendered to the banking supervision department. Compliance with extant AML CFT regulations relating to KYC, ongoing customer due diligence, and suspicious transaction reporting etc. is required in all circumstances. Customers should be encouraged to take alternative channels. Internet
banking.
banking.
This is predicated on the belief that it will force people to do more of e-banking, and make use of of electronic transfer more and more, and maybe alongside some other considerations. But the question is, how many people can actually do that? How many people have access to that? How many people are literate enough? So I know in some other parts of Africa, there are some of these other plans that do not require a high level of literacy. And I was talking about the M-Pesa the other time, that's popular in Kenya, that with your phone number, you're as good as having a bank account, and you can carry out transactions on that medium as well. Well, so we'll be bringing our guest shortly. Perhaps just go on another break to tidy up things. So when we return, we'll bring him on board, and then we are able to look at, get a professional perspective about this very conversation. We're back after this break.
Western Spring Television, ours it is.
How would you like a TV station that breaks the barriers of your TV screen? A TV station that brings infotainment to your forefront, breaking the conceptual fourth wall. Giving you television that is personal to you and your everyday life. Indigenous broadcasting for every man, cutting across the shackles of age, class, and language. With the best of equipment in digitized broadcasting. At Western Spring Television, your television experience has never been this magical. We bring you the best in news and programs, breaking news to you as it drops from where it drops. Talk shows that keep you glued to your seats, sports programs not void of in-depth analysis, entertainment programs cutting across all ages, political analysis with all its accompanying controversies, social responsibility because we care. Western Nigeria gave us our first feel of television. Western Spring Television is taking us to the next level.
Thank you so much for staying with us again. Morning Spring coming to you from Western Spring Television. where we say that it is. We have joining us live via Zoom this morning from Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, senior economist at SPM Professionals, Mr. Paul Alaje, to help us have a better understanding of the dynamics of this new CBN policy. Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, Mr. Alaje.
Thank you so very much for having me. Good morning.
Thank you. Also, tell me, what do you make of these new policies? I mean, a number of policies in the last few weeks by the CBN. First of all, the redesigning of the Naira. Now we have this cash withdrawal limit. And there's been hues and cries. And others who have also said, this is the way to go for us to achieve a cashless economy and a cashless society. What's your immediate reaction to the announcement of the policy, Mr. Alaje?
Well, from all of the things you are seeing from the central bank, what you can agree is that there is an undertone. There is something the central bank wants to achieve. And I will tell you what the assumptions are. Number one, it could be that the central bank wants to help the government to fight insecurity. And from the things we have seen and we have heard, especially what we have read in the news and we have watched on reputable TV stations like yours, is that the insurgents have continued to demand for cash. And you also heard that immediately after the designing of Naira, the insurgents say, what you are going to now pay is with the new Naira note. And it trended on most online platforms. And I could also see some media houses, publishing this information, which means insurgents is not, they are not some set of aliens that don't know what is going on. They are also, they are also aware of some of the decisions or policies that might be made by the central bank. So that's on one hand. Again, it seems as though the central bank as one is now just purchased a boxing glove, giving everyone uppercuts, left hook, and most especially jabbing. Unfortunately, some of the persons that were not targeted have been affected. Meanwhile, some of the persons that have been targeted by central bank is receiving several punches on their faces. Let me explain further. With this policy, central bank might be targeting the state governors and local governments that withdraw approximately 500,000 under the NFIU Act, 5 million, and I beg your pardon, cash on daily basis. We are seeing reports where some persons who are public affairs analysts have shared from 1 to 2 or 5 states how on daily basis millions of naira are withdrawn across the counter, and say they need it for state purposes. But with the policy, if eventually it stands, it's going to be very difficult for states to be withdrawing approximately 100,000 naira a week, about 400,000, less than 500,000 naira a month. And it's like using 20 years to react madness. When are you going to get to the street? But this is the effect of this policy, which also I think authorities need to give a very important attention to. Over 90% of businesses in Nigeria are SMEs. The recent report shows that we still have huge number of people that are living in rural areas. How do we, because of less than 5% of our population, who control about 90% of our wealth anyways, and I'm talking to those political elites, how do we, because of them, those that are surviving, those are somewhere in Antilla, in Sokoto State, who don't have access, to banking services. As an operator in grains and in milling, I can tell you that it will be very difficult for those that are going to the bush to source paddy in Nigeria. If you go and say, can I send money to you? They will tell you, I don't know what that is. I don't have an account. They are in the middle of nowhere. Although these people may have accounts because I have not verified it. But they found it very comfortable to collect cash because they think there could be network issues. Those who want to send money to them, it could be fake alert, and so on and so forth. So these are major issues. SMEs and those in the rural area will be affected severely. Now, central banks may say that if they are poor, we are not necessarily saying that they are poorest of the poor. The truth is, for farmers who are living in the rural community, there must be education. Government must provide education, and there must be change of attitude. They must embrace a new way of life before this policy will be implemented.
All right, Mr. Alaje, there are three concerns that I would like to raise to you for you to interrogate. Number one is, with the new, I'm talking from the perspective of people on responding to that issue now. The same with the new CBN policy on cash withdrawal, a lot of people will start avoiding banks. That's one. With this new CBN cash withdrawal policy, POS people are out of business. And the CBN proposed cash policy will kill a lot of businesses. Just like the border closure, millions of Nigerians will lose their jobs. Do you see any of these three things happening?
I see the three of them happening, not any. I see the three of them happening. You know, I was at the forefront of argument against border closure. And I mentioned what the benefits of border closure was and what the disadvantages are. Unfortunately, government chose to look at the benefits. In the end, the disadvantages outweigh benefits, and these were the explanations. So for this new policy, I've mentioned what the benefits are, and I've mentioned what the disadvantages are. So it is left for those in authority to reconsider, like I said. Yes, will people lose their jobs? Definitely, because people are not going to adjust within a month that the policy was introduced. Two, will it affect SME severely? It's going to affect SME severely. I would just like to warn those that may want to keep their money at home, that they should please not keep their money at home for the safety of their own life, for the safety of their wealth. They should keep the money within the banking sector. And this is something our central bank must also do. Banks have seen people as milk, they've milked a lot of people. And you and I, my interviewers, and myself, inclusive, we have been milked by banks. You know, you put money in the bank, to send you the alert of the money, they charge you. You want to withdraw the same money, they charge you. That the money is deposited, they charge you. You keep getting charges. So in the case where you have need for 21,000 naira in a day, you will go to the bank will charge you. The alert you receive will come at a cost. Nothing is free. So the question is, where is the place of those that are in the middle class, and more importantly, those that are poor? And for government to quickly remember, a data that was shared by government agencies, 133 million Nigerians, they are poor. 133. And I can also say that out of this 133, a significant proportion of them don't have access to the internet. They don't have access to some apps. I would also want to mention that even though there is high penetration of mobile phones and data in Nigeria, it has not covered the entire country. So the question is, how do we then make policy that affect their financial life and is very significant to them without thinking, without considering all areas?
What are the potentials for this new policy to create a new black market? I have it as it is here, that people who have backdoor access to cash notes will begin to sell to those who need it in exchange for transfers. Do you see a new black market emerging?
There could be, but I don't think it should be as significant, except and unless the central bank don't do the work and form an alliance that should be. If you go to parties, especially within the southern Nigeria, I've seen a few in the north, especially in the north central, and some key states like Kano, Kaduna, where people throw parties and somebody come and start selling notes, means to people to buy. I want to assume if this policy is implemented, even though I doubt that this policy will be implemented the way it is stated. I doubt very much. And if it is done that way, I tell you, one of the first things the next political leader will do is to reverse it. Honestly, that is one of the first things the next political will do. So I doubt if it will stand. Now, the policy itself, is it a good policy? Yes. Do I think that the amount central bank has mentioned is too small? I think it's too small. I think it's way too low. And the central bank wants to achieve this. I think they need to review the amount that is stated for a week, 20,000 a week for a person. I think the living is not. That's we are talking of for 5 working days, 100,000 naira. So compare that to a family of 4, where the husband has 4 children with 1 wife, and he's the only one working. And he says he spend 100,000 naira, for a week. I don't think it adds up. I don't think it Now, when you look at what inflation is saying, at over 21%, the value of money itself has even been defeated. And most people would prefer to have their money as cash. Yeah, so I think central bank needs to be considered because there is a backdrop there is a concern for a lot of things regarding it. But I am not wishing away the intention, the assumed intention of central bank. I think it's important. And most important, I think what central bank wants to achieve is to force inflation down. And I laugh when I saw the policy and I see the another policy direction. Central bank wants to force inflation down by all means. This is it. Money supply. When money supply is high, when people are allowed to withdraw money, and central bank is monitoring how the demand for the new high denomination note is happening. Now, when you have controlled money supply, inflation will drop suddenly. But that does not mean quality of life of people that improve. So you might, if this policy stands, you might see reduced inflation with hunger, deprivation, poverty, high crime rates. Because this is twisting, literally going to turn the economy and not allowing it to adjust itself. I don't think that would be right. Yes, I appreciate what the good intention would be, to stop gold buying, to stop terrorism, which are very important things. But I think the value central bank has set at this time is not very correct.
Well, you also talked about cash supply. One of the points on that CBN document, number 4, is that only denominations of 200 naira and below shall be loaded into the ATMs. I was saying earlier on the show that means, unlike before where I would need just 20 notes of 1,000 naira, if I were to withdraw 20,000 naira now, I would have 100 notes with me. How the cash supply, cash in circulation, will it reduce or increase?
So cash in circulation is not what matters. It is the total amount of money in circulation. That is what we capture under M1. So that's the money. Don't worry about that. So under M1, we look at total amount of money in circulation. We call it currency in circulation, CIC. So the currency in circulation is what matters to economists. So whether we call it 200 or 100, the truth is that central banks want to force down money in circulation. But this itself will create huge unemployment. It will create huge poverty. It will create a lot of deprivation. This is because we want to copy some Western policies. I would want those that are making policies for government to read about the Americans within the 70s and the 80s. Some of the policies that were also practiced in China within the 60s and the 80s. Some of these things like Anchor Borrowers Program, sharing of 5,000 equivalents in Nigeria, like promoting policies like that. It landed US in a recession. It landed China in poverty, hunger, and deprivation. They don't work. They simply don't work. If we want to counter terrorism, we should empower our military. If you want to counter the activity of politicians, we should empower INEC, EFCC, and ICCC. I have no issue with the currency redesign, but this 20,000 naira cash limit, I think it may not go far, and it will not really help the country. At best, Nigeria should expect, rather than having low inflation like government targeted for border closure, I said inflation will be in fact higher than we had. And I can tell you that this may further induce inflation because people will find alternatives. So if you don't want people to import, then you see promotion of smuggling because those that we kept at our borders are not properly paid. So those who want to import, they will look for some amount and give to them. They say, well, this is addition to my income. And they will promote economic growth. So before we implement this policy, it is important for those that have the ears of government to reconsider some of the policies, because I don't think they are right policies for us right now.
All right, so I mean, Mr. Laje, a lot of people have said, okay, so this is a good policy, but perhaps it's not a right time to implement it. But would there ever be a right time, looking at the fact that even on the African continent, a number of countries have moved beyond where we are here. And, coming to mind readily is that of Kenya with the popularity of the M-Pesa. So why can't we do that here? Why does it seem like we're saying we are not ready and we can't get this done when other countries on the African continent are moving in this direction and other parts of the world have moved in this direction?
Okay, so before now, you first need to look at what has happened in Kenya. To buy insurance in Kenya, you only need USSD. That has not happened in Nigeria. Kenya has tried to master data for their country. Nigeria is still struggling with NIMSI till date. So you see, before we see a policy that works, we should ask what were the fundamentals. The fundamentals of the policy is what Nigeria has not gotten well. In fact, one of the countries we need to learn health insurance, credit from is Kenya. One African country that has gotten it really well is Kenya. Nigeria is still struggling with a lot of things. So for us to say we want to have the products without the process, I'm afraid we might not get the actual result. So is this the right time? I think my argument is beyond the time. My argument is about the effect. Whether central bank starts it today, or you want to start it tomorrow, or you want to start it next year. I want us to look at the core villages, core remote areas all around our country. This even affects COS. So just take your mind, for the two of you in the studio and people that are viewing us now, or people that will view us maybe on YouTube or any other platform in the future, look at the remote parts of your state and look at the population. When you travel to the left and to the right of most parts of your journey, look at people living in those bushes. People are there. Are there banks there? Is there a banking presence in those areas? Because you must have a connection to banks. And in places where we say people have networks, how do they recharge their phones? Somebody needs money, he needs to first transport himself to a bank, which may cost him 100 naira or 50 naira, as the case may be. And going back, many parts of his money is depleted. So he or she may want to ask, is it really profitable for me? Can't I create a mini boat in my home where I can save money and anytime I need it, I can also have access to it? Now, it's not going to become a cycle. Some of the monies we saw online that trended, people that created a piggy bank of some sort, throwing their money inside. And central bank says, bring all those monies out, the higher denomination. We want to change it to, want to have a new design for the currency. Now, as that is done, the question is that not where we want to use policy to force people back to? Are we not saying people should start having this kind of safe in their home because 20,000 naira for a week is just too small?
Well, so you've pointed out some contradictions in our own system, and you said there's some fundamentals that we need to get right before we even think, about this. But it appears that it's also a class issue. For many of those who support this new policy belong to the middle class and perhaps the elite who play big on the, e-transaction platforms. And many of the opposition have seen to this policy is from those who belong to the lower rung of the ladder, and then POS operators and some of that. Do you see from that angle also, is this reflective of the gulf in class, or the class system that, exists also in Nigeria?
To a large extent, you are very correct, to a large extent. But you should ask, what is the number? Let's rely on National Bureau of Statistics people. People living under multidimensional poverty, they are not in the middle class, they are not among the elite, they are not in the upper class. They are not the 1% of the 1%. The National Bureau of Statistics has got international organization said there were over 100 million, over 130 million. So they are in the majority. When you look at our population of 211 million, over 130 million is certainly a majority. So their voices must be heard. I understand they don't control significant parts of our resources. So could it be that the central bank wants to accommodate for these people? Want to accommodate this population, maybe in some areas, in some rural community, in some local government, there could be that room for them to say maybe they can withdraw XYZ amount people start preparing, they start learning. The central bank also direct banks maybe to have ATM present, for government to provide around the ATM. Because the truth is, government must perform the roles of government, while private sector will support when they feel that there's significant protection in such areas.
All right, so, you know, I asked that the other time about when would be the right time, but I should ask you, because you also talked about fundamentals. So if you, I'd like you to let at least our viewers know again, what are those key things that you feel we need to put in place before we even begin to think about this, and how soon, within which time frame do you think we can actually achieve it? Because in fairness, we can't stay on this same spot forever. You know, I mean, most part of the Western world, you do not get to see high denominations spent like that on the street. So what do we need to put in place? And by your reading of the Nigerian state and the system, how soon do you think we can put it in place for us to begin to look in the direction of this new policy?
Well, let me first say that we don't see high denomination on the streets may not be very correct. For the countries I've been to, I've never seen any withdrawal limits. I've never seen any withdrawal limit. Yeah, there could be there, but it's not, when you convert 20,000 to the dollar and you look at the amounts to withdraw, this is the first time ever I'll be hearing this. And I think I've been to some advanced countries, I've been to countries of equal ranking with Nigeria. But I can tell you, I just returned from a country that has almost our GDP, and there's no such thing. So to say that I could see when Nigeria designed, a lot of people came up and say, oh, America designed. But the old note in America remain legal tender. In fact, what Great Britain is also introducing the king as a coin. But that does not mean that we face out the queen. The two of them remain legal tender until they start going back. So the element of force in the policy is what perhaps is bringing a lot of concern to people. So you don't say because you face it and people that have that overnight it's cut off. No, it's not a military regime. So it's a civilian regime. And in looking at policy, even though some of the policies are good, we should also present them in a way that are acceptable to our people. So that said, you mentioned what are the fundamentals. The first one is education. We need to properly educate our people. And this education may come in form of buying airtime on your station, for instance. You know, central bank partners with some of the advocacy organizations to educate, especially target rural communities, use different languages such as Yoruba, Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, you know, use all these languages, including Ibibio, you know, Anang language, use everything possible, you know, if it's Steve, if it's Doma, and let people know that going forward, these are the things central bank wants to do, and put it across board. So it's not going to just be what we call it maybe news mention or what you just mentioned in the news for 1 or 2 or 4 weeks, and that no. Central bank must be ready to champion this advocacy. The National Orientation Agency must also come forward to let people know what the policies are. It's not just that people we assume, one moment people hear that, oh, sorry, the currency has been redesigned, and before the end of January, you have to turn it. The next, when the following week, they hear that, oh, you cannot now do more than 20,000. What that means is that people may still look for a savings. People may decide to keep their money in dollars. And if they keep their money in dollars, it's a big issue for us. It will now be counterproductive to the first policy. And this is what we economists call policy somersault. If we don't look at it on all sides. So poverty level is high, we need to do something about it. Education is very important, we need to do something about it. Provision of infrastructure, financial-driven infrastructure in rural areas, in those areas where the National Bureau of Statistics say we have 130 or 133 million Nigerians that are living in multi-dimensional poverty, no access to toilets, no access to proper financial institutions, no access to quite a number of things. How do we provide this financial infrastructure for them. Let me tell you one of the key things that is driving global financial infrastructure. It is called the internet. It's not to build a big bank. It is internet. Is there access to internet? In most remote parts of Nigeria, as we have it in different parts of the world, once that is done, and I'm talking of fiber optics, if that is done, then we are saying we are launching this kind of policy. In fact, in most countries, people now do tap. You take an ATM card, you tap it on a device, even your phone, if you save your MasterCard, you tap it on the device, the money is done. And people can even load cash. You don't need to go to any bank. You load cash on cash loading machine, you get to your ATM. So but those infrastructure, they are not here. So you want to live in a kind of house, a mansion, but you don't even have the land. You don't have the land. You don't have blocks. You don't have bricks. You don't have cement. But you are dreaming to have a house, and you don't have any friend to dash you one. It's going to be very difficult, honestly.
Okay, so let's look at points 1 and 6. The central bank did give a caveat that you can withdraw beyond the limit, over the limit of 100,000, but not exceeding once a month, subject to some regulations and some things you need to fill and submit, with a processing fee of 5% for individuals and 10% for corporate organizations. What are the implications of this processing fees, one? And now, talking about POS operators, how does this affect them, seeing as they can no longer give an individual more than 20,000 naira daily?
Well, first of all, what Central Bank is saying with your first question is that we don't want you to withdraw more than 20,000 and 100,000 for individual and corporate within a week. If you have read those conditions, it's like what the Bible says. It will take, it's like asking a camel to pass through the needle eye. You know, the needle eye is a gate in Jerusalem that is very narrow, that whatever the camel wants to pass, they have to drop all the excesses, not the needle, literally. So it will take a camel to pass through the needle eye. That means you have to drop the weight. All those excesses by yourself, nobody will tell you. You drop it because of the stress. And this is just once in a month. You have to repeat it next month. They are saying that just go and use the online platform. That is the essence of that. That's my interpretation to that. Now, for POS operator, you know, Central Bank is looking at improving bank presence. When you look at the total number of BVN we have in Nigeria, I think it's less than half of the population. And when you remove children, you look at the penetration, we still need to do more. We need to do a lot more. So POS has actually helped to improve this. Maybe Central Bank will now say POS can open a virtual account for people, I don't know, so that as they open, and this is what happened in other environments, virtual accounts are open and an ATM card that is connected to that account, only that account is given. Then they teach people how to use it. So if that is what Central Bank is doing, then they've solved a lot of problems in rural communities. However, remember, internet infrastructure must be provided, because now we are talking virtual, and the center point of virtual is the internet. So if you're providing that, saying that this is a card for you, and at the same time, this is a virtual account for you, then you can have both. When you put this on your phone, or they are going to open a virtual account where you may not even need a physical card. You know, you can even do transactions, but majority of the people must embrace this new reality for it to work.
Well, so, you know, just before we conclude these conversations, you talked about the USSD in Kenya and how widespread it is. We also do it here in Nigeria. You know, perhaps for those who may not know, tell us what part that will play in what CBN wants to do. What's the impact in Kenya, and what's the potential for us here in Nigeria, that USSD code?
Well, the impact of USSD code for a country that don't have high internet penetration is that with your mobile phone, with the voice, if you can make call and you can send SMS, USSD code could also help to solve a lot of problems. The challenge is that fee was introduced. I think 100 naira last year or 2 years ago was introduced to USSD code. So, but without that aside, USSD code will really go a long way to reduce the need for cash in our community and in our rural community. Because if they can make, or anywhere where making call is possible, all you need is to know how to use the USSD code. And you need to approach your bank, because for you to use it, that means you have an account already. So we go back to having an account. That means you already have BVN already. And for you to have BVN and for you to open accounts now you need it. So if you have the national identification number and you have the BVN and you have an account, then you can use the USSD code. So with USSD code, you can send money out without you necessarily holding cash. And if people have the account number, if they use USSD code, you also receive the money. You can check your balance. You can do a lot of great things on USSD code. You can buy insurance on USSD code. This has happened in Kenya. You can even pay for your air bills using USSD code. You can buy groceries using USSD code in Kenya. These are things that environment has gotten correctly, without necessarily holding Kenya shilling. They've been able to solve a lot of problems using USSD code. But I doubt if the cash withdrawal limit is equivalent of 20,000 naira for individual in UK Nigeria. I doubt. I doubt. But the one I know for most advanced countries, such policy is not there. People hold cash, even though there are limits, but it's not. I don't know what 20,000 equivalent. I think recent exchange rate is about 440 is the official window. And if we say 440 divided by 20,000, that is very negligible for somebody to hold a week at cash. So the challenge central bank is bashing with is that fiscal authorities have not provided required infrastructure. When those infrastructure is provided, people naturally, by themselves on their own, we embrace this new reality.
I would like to thank you most sincerely, Mr. Paul Alaji, senior economist at SPM Professional, for joining us, enlightening us on this issue. I mean, you've opened my own eye personally to the fact that we need to put a lot in place, infrastructure-wise. I mean, so you're talking about the fundamentals, about the, having a proper database. We don't even have that. NIMC is still struggling, and he said that's a key part of what we are looking at here. So perhaps too much in a hurry. But we thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Alaji. Good to have you. We should say your debut on Western Spring Television. We hope to have you again and again.
Thank you so very much. It's a beautiful place to be.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, so that's the interview this morning. Emmanuel, it's a very good one. Some new insight, some insight into these, what we're talking about here.
Yes, it's a very interesting one. Now we know that the CBN may have just put the cart before the horse. There are a lot of things you need to put in place, a lot of what ifs, a lot of things to consider, a lot of grounds to be wet, and a lot of holes to be dug before you can insert the poles or make a tent. And we're hoping that the authorities will look into these and not force people into some of these policies, because it's going to take a toll. It's like asking people to put their hands in fire without providing extinguishers. There has to be an enabling environment for this to work. You have to put all of those fundamentals that he mentioned in place. There's still the issue of internet penetration. There's still the issue of education. He did mention that the National Orientation Agency now has to do, in conjunction with the CBN advocacies and all of that, to bring people into the know that this is what we are going to do and this is how you can be a part of it. And that would make it easier to implement.
Well, so that's the show today. I'll be stepping aside as usual. Emmanuel will be back with what's trending. You mind hinting us what's trending today?
Yes, happy birthday, happy independence to Tanzania. That's where we're starting from.
Oh, Tanzania, Tanganyika, Dar es Salaam. Okay, okay.
And before we do that, I think we should let people know now. A lot of persons think that Dar es Salaam is the capital of Tanzania.
Okay.
Dar es Salaam is simply the largest city in Tanzania.
Just like Lagos.
Yes, the capital is Dodoma. That's the capital of Tanzania.
Dodoma.
Not Dodomayana or something like that.
Oh, okay.
We'll see on
there's another popular. Okay, so I think there is Also, a popular place here, tourists go in Tanzania.
Yes,
That's
Mount
Zanzibar.
Kilimanjaro. Zanzibar.
Zanzibar, part of it.
Kilimanjaro.
Okay, it's a beautiful country. Have you been there? You went there virtually?
Yes, virtually. I tend to spend my Christmas there.
The same Christmas or
yes,
the next
no,
one?
no, the same Christmas.
Okay.
I have enough to, you know.
With this even cash limit and everything.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
I agree with you. That's the show today. Femi Olanikwekun is my name. Good morning. Can you imagine the feeling when you get your news as the break with facts and clarity? Our news are reported as it is.
In Africa, and all those who masterminded the way it happened, we have to pay a price.
Enjoy Western programs, projecting culture and tradition to the world. Brought to you as the break and recapped every hour for your update.
We must never forget the sacrifices of the heroes of Nigeria's democracy.
Produced and brought to you in a unique way never before seen.
Western Spring.
Western Spring.
And Western Spring Television. Television is coming home in your color and culture. How would you like a TV station that breaks the barriers of your TV screen? A TV station that brings infotainment to your forefront, breaking the conceptual fourth wall. Giving you television that is personal to you and your everyday life. Indigenous broadcasting for every man, cutting across the shackles of age, class, and language. With the best of equipment in digitized broadcasting. At Western Spring Television, your television experience has never been this magical.
We bring you the best in news and programs, breaking news to you as it drops from where it drops.
Talk shows that keep you glued to your seats. Sports programs not void of in-depth analysis. Entertainment programs cutting across all ages. Political analysis with all its accompanying controversies. Social responsibility because we care. Western Nigeria gave us our first feel of television. Western Spring Television is taking us to the next level.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
On this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
All right, good morning. Thank you once again for joining us on Spring Trends on Morning Spring, bringing you live from Western Spring Television on Star Times channel 190 DTT. Don't forget to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram at Western Spring Television, and on Twitter at WSTV_NG. My name is Emmanuel Ujiadigile. We begin in Tanzania this morning. On the 9th of December 1961, British rule ended in Tanzania. And on the 9th of December 1962, Tanzania became a republic. That means that today, Tanzania is celebrating 61 years that British rule ended in the country. But interestingly, instead of having a ceremony, let's see what the president has decided to do. The president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has cancelled the 61st Independence Day celebration scheduled to hold on Friday today, diverting the funds for the celebration, around $445,000, to building of dormitories for children with special needs around the country. Now let's see how people, including Nigerians, have reacted to that particular incident. We'll begin with Daniel Rega. He says the Nigerian government and other African leaders should learn from President Samia Suluhu. Celebrating the Independence Day means nothing if the citizens are unhappy. Promises are always made but almost never fulfilled. Talk less, more action. God bless the president of Tanzania. Away from Daniel, we'll move on to the mayor of Quit City. It says, I know a country where money can be diverted from education to fund Independence Day celebration. And right under it, Mr. Ola says, say Nigeria without saying Nigeria. The next responses are coming from two Twitter users. Unkuru Onyekuru says, this will not dare happen in Nigeria. We'd rather borrow money to celebrate that independence, even if people are dying of hunger, because we don't want the labors of our past heroes to be in vain. Nonsense. Usman Ramadu says, this is leadership. There is nothing to celebrate about independence when majority of your population can't get access to clean, safe, potable drinking water. Still on Twitter, we're talking about happy independence Tanzania. Well, I believe she's wrong. That's from Yangama, and that's my opinion. Yes, your opinion. You don't cancel Independence Day celebration for a project. She should have sought for other funds to do that project. Adela Kwadeyinka says, part of leadership is prioritizing. And believe me, if she's not wrong, divert a celebration event for a project that will benefit more than the event. Now, assistant to the general manager, Chrismy August says, the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. Effective leadership is not about making speeches or being liked. Leadership is defined by results, not attributes. It might sound cliche, but more women in leadership role, please. That's that about the Independence Day in Tanzania. Now, moving away from Tanzania on a lighter mood this morning. This week, I made a friend, and as you can see on your screen, the name of my friend is Zenith. I mean, that's the weirdest name I've ever heard. Our parents gave us Zenith. My friend pictured below has the weirdest name I've ever heard. Our official given government first name is Zenith. Well, I've heard of Benefit, Born Great, Shine, Kingdom, and Equality, but never Zenith. So I asked people on Twitter and Facebook to tell me the weirdest names they've heard. Let's see the responses that we got. This one from Ayomi says Nigeria. A friend during my PDS days in Futa bears Nigeria, as in Nigeria is part of his registered names. I wonder what would make a parent name their child Nigeria. Next comment is from Jane. She says, confidence, endurance, greater. I've heard of confidence, I've heard of endurance, but I've never heard greater. And rapture. Who names a child Rapture? I'd like to know the story behind that name, Rapture Bao. Ayomi says, also a colleague during my MSc program at UI named our first child 13. Of course, it's a thing in Western countries to name your children after numbers or days, but I've never seen it in Nigeria. Faith Orue Idele on Facebook says, I know of someone called Builder, female. Yeah, and I said the story behind that name must be interesting. How do you name someone Builder? Adejumoke Adeigbe says, it's not weird. It's a beautiful name and it means Ibigiga in Yoruba. I have a baby that bears that name. By the way, have you heard surprise? I kept wondering why exactly are you surprised? You carry belle for 9 months. Sure, you did not expect the Peking before, ni? Abi, it shocked me. But that's the last surprise. We now move back to Nigeria. Let's go to Lagos. In Lagos, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu announced yesterday that he was going to slash tuition fees across Lagos universities by 65%. 65% is what Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is slashing Lagos University's tuition fees. And let's see the response. Jennifer Agwantusi is the first respondent. She says, election is coming. The rate at which they will increase it after election, it go shock una. City Boy Remy responding to that says, this your analysis, it's wrong, Sha. Next comment is from Blaze. Blaze says, elections are close by. What do you expect? And Balogun Kuku of Ijebuland says, can your own governor also do same and use it as election campaign? Next comment is from Sweet Stopensi. He's saying, as we increased our salary last 2 months, it's yet to reflect. And Michael Thompson says, Imareu. Now, next comment is from Alagba Kenneth. He says, Jide Sanwo-Olu, good job. And kindly reassure the student that no matter the outcome of 2023, this your kind decision shall remain Kankwe. And the last comment on that, Abuja lover boy says, election they come now. He doesn't want what happened in Osun State to happen to him. Public money, sweet hope. That's what we have for you on the show today. From Tanzania to the names and to Lagos slashing tuition fees. Woo, it's Friday, time to get into the groove, time to party, time to enjoy yourself. But don't forget to remain on the safe side of the law. Do not get into trouble, because if you get into trouble, the best we can do for you is to trend hashtag. And may that not be your portion. Don't forget to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Western Spring Television. On Twitter, it is at WSTV_NG. You can also follow me on Twitter at EM Ujadigele. My name is Emmanuel Ujadigele. I'm wishing you Merry Christmas in advance and Happy New Year next year. Do stay safe. See you on Monday.